Hey, the sci-fi movie guy here. Today I will tell you about an awesome action sci-fi movie called Hulk, so sit back, relax and enjoy. Also please leave a like on this video, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to never miss a movie. David Banner is a genetics researcher for the government, trying to improve human DNA using the genetics of various animals. His supervisor, General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, forbids him from using human test subjects.
No human subjects.
So David in all his wisdom decides to experiment on himself. His wife, Edith, soon gives birth to their son, Bruce Banner. David realizes Bruce inherited his mutant DNA and attempts to find a cure. After discovering his dangerous experiments on his own son, Ross confronts and shuts down David's research, who throws a tantrum and rigs Desert Base's gamma reactor to explode as revenge. 4-year-old Bruce is sent into foster care and adopted by Mrs. Krenzler and assumes the surname. Growing up believing his birth parents are dead, he is tormented by dreams he can't remember. 30 years later, Bruce is a brilliant scientist working at the Berkeley lab with his girlfriend and Ross's estranged daughter, Betty Ross. They get an opportunity to present their research for funding, however their experiments turn out to be a failure after their subject explodes. Representing the private research company Atheon, the shady Glenn Talbot, a previous love interest of Betty, shows up and tries to flex on Betty with his accomplishments, but she's not having it. He becomes interested in the scientist's Nanim's research to create regenerating soldiers for the military-industrial complex, but Betty turns down the offer.
2 rooms, the door.
A shadowy figure appears, working as the new janitor in the lab, who catches the attention of Betty, but she dismisses it. Bruce also sees a strange dog inside his office, tries to pet it and almost comes up a few fingers short. The shadowy figure turns out to be David, Bruce's father, who sneaks into his office and finds a strand of hair and deducing that Bruce is actually his son from his experiments. Glenn turns up at the office and confronts Bruce about his hesitation in allowing Atheon to take over and threatens to take his work by force. Ross investigates and becomes concerned for Betty's safety around Bruce. Bruce saves his and Betty's colleague Harper from an accident with a malfunctioning gammasphere by taking the full blast. Waking in a hospital bed, Bruce tells Betty he feels better than ever, but Betty cannot fathom his survival since the Nanims killed everything else. Unknown to them, the radiation merged with Bruce's altered DNA. Bruce wakes to see David sitting creepily by his bed, revealing Bruce's true last name and information about his mother and hinting at Bruce's mutation. He explains how he was imprisoned for 30 years by General Ross. He then later uses samples of Bruce's DNA for animal experimentation. Betty meets with her father, who tells her that Bruce is not who she thinks he is, but is unable to disclose any details. Bruce investigates his own DNA and finds that David is telling the truth. His increasing rage from the tensions mounting around him activates his gamma-radiated DNA. He becomes the Hulk and, while tearing the lab apart, comes face to face with his father. He is calm at first, but after having flashes of memory, he gets enraged and jumps through the ceiling. Betty finds Bruce unconscious in his home the following morning, barely remembering last night. Betty locates David to investigate him, and after being creepy, David steals her scarf and makes her leave. After hours of interrogation, Ross seizes the lab and places Bruce under house arrest. David calls Bruce that night, revealing he mutated his 3 dogs and set them on Betty, enraging him. Cocky Dude shows up at the house and attacks Bruce about the lab. Bruce, enraged, transforms into the Hulk once more and beats the shit out of Talbot and Ross's MPs. The Hulk then finds Betty at her forest cabin, and after a bloody fight with David's 3 mutated mutts, he rescues her and changes back. Betty calls Ross the following day without Bruce's knowledge. The army sedates and takes Bruce to their desert base. Deeming him damned to follow in David's footsteps, Ross doubts helping Bruce, but Betty persuades Ross to let her try. David subjects himself to the nanomeds and gammasphere, becoming able to meld with and absorb the properties of anything he touches. Talbot wrestles control of the operation from Ross, forcing Betty to return home. Seeking to profit from the Hulk's power, Talbot tries and fails to provoke Bruce. Bruce is made unconscious and placed in an isolation tank. David confronts Betty at her house, offering to surrender himself and asking to speak to Bruce one last time in exchange. Talbot induces a nightmare from Bruce's repressed memories and triggers a transformation. The Hulk wrecks the underground base until Cocky Dude traps the Hulk in sticky foam and tries taking a sample of him, but the Hulk's rage enlarges him and he breaks free. Talbot fires an explosive round, but it rebounds into a back wall and explodes. Ross resumes command upon Talbot's death. The Hulk escapes the base, battles the army in the desert, and leaps to San Francisco to find Betty. After a standoff with the military, she convinces Ross to take her to the Hulk, making Bruce return to normal. Bruce and David talk at a base in the city while Ross watches, threatening to incinerate them. David has descended into megalomania, wanting Bruce's power to destroy his enemies. After Bruce refuses, David bites into a high-voltage cable when Ross powers it and absorbs the energy, mutating into a powerful electrical creature. Bruce becomes the Hulk and fights and overpowers him. They are presumed dead after Ross orders a gamma charge bomb to end the battle. A year later, Ross has Betty under constant surveillance, and many Hulk sightings still occur since Bruce finds exile in the Amazon rainforest as a medical camp doctor. Thanks for watching. You can check out my other movies here.